All right, welcome to this week's Appliance Repair Roundtable call. We hold these calls every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. If you're not able to be attending live, as you guys can probably see, we have a smaller turnout this week. But if you're not able to attend live, or if you have to hop off, this is being recorded. I will post the recording both in Facebook and on YouTube. So wherever you are coming across this video right now, that would be the same place that you can get info to join future calls. So TK, you were saying that this has been a trying week for you. You've been questioning your sanity?
Oh, I do that every day anyway, but probably more so this week. Yeah, it's just been tough, man. It's everything from the new tech. I want the new guy that I'm trying to make a really good tech is causing some frustrations, and we love him and we only want to see what's best for him and for the business, but it's like, you know, it's like the first guy we trained all over again almost. He's costing us money, and we're hemorrhaging money right now, and trying to put band-aids on machete wounds. And there's just a lot of other stuff going on. And I'm just burnt out. And I started taking a new amino acid this week that gives you extra energy and extra focus. So I guess that was a good timing for me to start taking that.
There you go.
And I will say it has worked. So if you've never looked into L-tyrosine, the amino acid supplement, highly recommend it.
Good to know, man. Good to know. So what's going on with this tech? I don't know if you want to share a little more, if you want to workshop some of this.
Just making a lot of mistakes, a lot of recalls, stuff that we know we've taught him he's missing. Easy like visual stuff, and it's just frustrating because you put so much time and so much money into these people and you love them. That's my biggest thing, is I get emotionally attached to people. And I need, as far as I'm concerned, if you're a part of my crew, you're a part of my family. And that's the environment that I want to cater. That's the environment that I want to, what's the word I'm looking for? Guess the old L-tyrosine ain't as good as I thought it was. That's the kind of environment that I want to have around my business. But with that comes the emotional attachment you get to these people. And when there's disappointments and letdowns, it's not like, oh man, it's just another dude that I don't care about. It's someone that you love and you care about. And it's hard, man. It's really hard.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you right, I'm trying to understand what's going on. If I'm hearing you right, it's like you have this newer tech. How much experience does this technician have before they came to you?
0.
Okay, so green tech, you train them up, and then they show competency.
Yep.
And then however many months or weeks go down the line, and then there's a lack of consistency that is making you, I mean, it would make me wonder, like, did they really get it in the beginning and then they're letting things slide, or did they not get it in the beginning and they just were able to kind of show the right things, say the right things? I mean, is that kind of where your head is at? Does that sound like what might be going on?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like a lot of the easy stuff that we taught him. See, I don't want to train parts changers. I want to train technicians. So, if you can't go out and diagnose and troubleshoot properly, and, not that you're never going to have to call me, or not that you're never going to have to, run into stuff. I still run into stuff that I need help with. But I want my guys to be at a point where they are, pretty self-sufficient, not right out the gate, but not missing the kind of things that he's missing. What I'm questioning really is if he really understands how these machines work. And every, you tell me if you experience this, but there's a certain point when you're working on appliances where it clicks. And my mentor used to tell me this. He's like, there's going to be a day when you're working on a dryer, because the dryer is the first thing that clicks for everybody because it's so simplistic. There's going to be a day you're working on a dryer where you're like, I completely understand how this machine works. I understand why it does what it does. I understand how it does. I understand what's necessary for it to do what it does. I understand the different systems in this machine. Because I'm one of those people that when I look at an appliance, I break it down into systems. So like on a dryer, I'm looking at the drive system, the airflow system, and the temperature control system, and all these different systems. And that's how my brain works. But not everybody's brain works that way. But when it clicks, and was that how it was for you, EJ? Did it kind of click at one point?
Yeah, some of them have clicked. Seem like refrigerators just won't click for me. But
yeah, refrigerators were the last for me too. And I'm not sure they're 100% clicked now. The sealed system part hasn't clicked, I can tell you that much.
So the thing that I think about is, and me and Zach has talked about this before. Us guys are natural techs. Our brains work like that. We see it, we break it down. You don't even have to see the machine before, and you can listen, see, feel, touch, smell, and it kind of hones into a certain part of the machine. And sometimes it's hard for us to look at people that aren't natural techs and wonder what the heck is going on in their head and get frustrated. I know I had, in my past life, I had been a maintenance manager for maintenance techs, and some of them are getting paid good money and been doing it several years and still wonder what the heck are they doing? Like, are you paying attention? But as it relates to that, I've got a few years of management experience, although I don't have any techs right now. As a manager, you have to first consider that you're the blame. Have you done everything you're supposed to have done to train this person? And sometimes you want to easily say, yes, I have tried. But different people learn different ways. And part of the job of a manager and a leader is to find which way a person learns and try to teach them that way. And it gets frustrating, but it starts with setting the expectations. I had done some studying before, and somebody broke it down, and I won't be exact on it. Basically, the steps are: tell them what you want, show them how to do it, watch them do it, and then provide feedback. And it sounds easier than what it is, but you have to have very clear expectations before you move forward with anything else, and provide the feedback. I know you guys have put months in. What's it been? 6 months now? With that tech, it's tough though. At some point, it starts to hurt the business, and you got to make a decision.
Yeah, August will be 8 months. 8 months in on this tech. But so basically what I've done, Alex, just to kind of catch you up to speed on what proactive actions I've done. I've put them on a 30-day probation, and basically restructured my pay, the way I pay him, and he gets a percentage now. And basically the way we're going to try to do things is, once you graduate from apprentice to being in your own van, you're going to be a parts guy, where you go behind us and or any other lead tech that has proven himself to us. And I can Gandy special. And he's going to basically follow us around. When we need to order parts, he'll be the guy coming back to put the parts on. So we won't be doing diagnostics, but as he's putting these parts on, we will be explaining to him how it's diagnosed and to recheck our diagnosis when we get there. So when he gets there, he'll repeat what we basically have already done, but he'll have the part there and we're going to know it's going to fix it.
I like that. You know, and I'm trying to, you know, this certain, I guess, analogy or way of looking at things has popped up to me here on this topic. And it's like, how would I say this? There's a difference between knowing what to do and knowing why you do whatever it is that you need to do. And you guys were touching on that. You know, it's like, you know, I'm a green tech. I'm following you around. I'm seeing what you're doing, and then I'm replicating. I'm like copying that. But
right.
I think what you were describing as that moment where things clicked is that moment where it's not a matter of repetition and essentially memorizing what you're supposed to do. Another way to think of it is like in school. You know, in the education system in this country, it's all about memorization so that you can so that you can pass a test. And then X amount of years down the line, you try to take that test again, you're going to fail unless you understand, you know, the process behind. And same thing with what we're talking about here. You know, that moment that clicked with you, TK, is when you got to understand, as you were saying, how the different systems of the appliance works. So it's not a matter of you needing to know how to perform a certain type of job on a certain type of machine. It's a matter of you being able to understand how the systems work so that you can diagnose, troubleshoot, and pretty much figure out what you need to do sort of from that space of, you know, this is how it works. So therefore we know these concepts, and therefore I can, you know, whittle it down to what it is that you're needing to do. And I think that's probably a good definition between a parts changer and a technician.
Correct.
Or a good breakdown or delineation between a parts changer and a technician. Yeah, what versus why?
Yeah, exactly. And there's other stuff going on. You know, we're attempting to merge the businesses together and become one, and get rid of some of the extra overhead that we have because we're paying, you know, 3 insurances and all that stuff. All the stuff that you pay in one business, we're paying it 3 times because there's technically 3 businesses: my business, my partner's business, and then the partnership. So, you know, I'm just at the point now where it's like, all right, we need to either shit or get off the pot, because I can go and run my business and make money. I've done that. I've already proven that to myself, that I can make money in the appliance repair business. Now the question is, can I grow it to the next level and have, you know, 5 to 10 techs out there doing it for me?
For sure. For sure. Welcome to those that just popped in. Feel free to jump on in as you like, however, wherever you feel the need, however the conversation goes. While we're kind of on this topic, EJ, if you don't mind me interrupting Papa John's a little bit before I hit the record button, you and I were chatting a little bit about. Or I think it was more, I was asking you some questions, and then TK jumped on and we kind of shifted gears, just asking you some questions about how you're approaching your upcoming new hires. You know, you're looking to hire a technician or 2, And I was asking you, what's your strategy with that? Are you going to start them out at parts changing and you're going to diagnose? Are you going to start them out at the easier jobs while you're focusing on your refrigeration sealed system jobs, a combination? What is your strategy and your approach coming from a single truck or essentially an owner operator from the technician standpoint to bringing on your first tech? That is going to be essentially a green tech.
Yeah. The guy I'm working on hiring right now, if he accepts the offer, he's done a ride along and plans to do another one next week. He's just a regular tech type guy. He's no appliance repair experience. He's done appliance installs and dryer vent cleaning up to the dryer, but not taking them apart. But he's picked up dryers very quickly. So what I'm planning to do is maybe work him as a trainee 4 days a week and build up a day where all he does is go and do dryer calls. And after probably 30 to 60 days, work him into doing only his jobs, dryers, ovens, maybe ice makers, and then working in washers and dishwashers as availability comes. And what I'd like to do is get him to eventually take most of the less complicated jobs. I would focus on the more complicated jobs and refrigerators, but eventually get him up to where he's doing all of them, hopefully in 6 months, 9 months, and focus on just sealed systems until I get a second tech running to do all of it as well. But what I'd really like to do is open up my time, because I'm running 8 to 10 calls a day now for the last couple weeks, and it's getting old. I don't have much time or energy to work on my business, and that's one thing I'm very passionate about, is working on it and not just in it. I'm not one that wants to own my job, not an appliance repair at least, but I want to own the business and build something that sustains my life and my family. So I need time to go out and drum up business. My next target would be to work on adding property management companies to provide workload for additional techs.
Now, let me ask you, as TK was talking about how his strategy, he's shifting gears with his new, 8 months new kind of greener tech, where he's going to have him, as TK put it, follow and install after the diagnosis. Is that going to be your approach also, or are you going to be teaching him how to, you use dryers as the first type as an example, are you going to be teaching him how to both diagnose and repair, or are you going to have him kind of follow along as an installer after you diagnose?
Yeah, I mean, it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's still theory in my business, but it kind of depends on what kind of tech or apprentice you have. The guy that I'm trying to hire is, I believe he could handle diagnostics quicker. He's been an auto mechanic. He's a guy that just fixes things. He just knows how to do it, kind of like the rest of us that are natural techs. So I think he'll pick up on it. But I do like the idea of a guy that follows behind and installs to get comfortable with it. So I think I'll probably do a mix of it. He'll have his own diagnostic and installs, but I may have him go behind me and install as well. I think it's a great way to add the extra appliances into their repertoire, if you will. Maybe they're not comfortable diagnosing washers because they don't know the components, but if all they had to do is take it apart and put a new part on, maybe that would get them more comfortable. I'll tell you, we just got 3 extra guys in that all have multiple techs. I'd love to hear some from them though. One of you guys want to talk? Mark, we've missed you, man. Good to see you back.
I just got in. No, I'm still running one man
what's going on with your son or sons that we're going to be helping out?
I expressed one time, my oldest son, I got him out there during COVID, kind of took him just on normal days. And I think I overwhelmed him, like too many products, too many things. And I think I kind of put too much out in front of him. So he's doing something else right now. My second son has helped me with deliveries for years, and just doing deliveries and in and out of customers' houses and Dolly, and he's learning a lot where, you know, he's my hope to try to get him going at some point. But everybody's in the same problem. You can't find good people that you can pay well.
Yep, that is the problem across the board for everybody. Every single company I know is looking for techs.
And it's not just the appliance repair industry. It's
totally
really across all service industries.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that this is a result of kind of a change in the times that happened years ago. I mean, if we think about this generationally, really zoom out. I mean, you know, I'm in my 30s. You know, they had stopped providing auto shop at my high school. You know, they just barely had held on to wood shop. You know, so I think that that's just one micro example. You know, you got all these other macro examples about, you know, the shift towards technology focused sort of, you know, economies and whatnot. But what I'm getting at is I believe that the days of finding a good technician, again, this applies to all service industries, but let's focus this on our industry. I think that the days of really finding a good technician, at least one that has decades in front of them, is probably over or on the way out. And I think that it's really a matter of, and this is going to separate, if you will, the boys from the men with companies, or it's a more politically correct way of saying it. This is going to separate the companies that are able to really figure out how to train and manage, because I think that that's really going to be the key to long-term success in this section of this industry. Is the ability to, as we've been talking about, the ability to take somebody that's green off the street that maybe they have some experience with auto or you know, some other sort of mechanical inclination, but don't have experience with appliances, and be able to take them from that green tech through that progression to, you know, to be in their own truck and take care of anything that you can throw at them.
I'm
If you are
right on
going to
board.
find, yeah, go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, I'm right on board, you know, with that. You know, I mean, one thing, you know, I just jumped on, sorry to interrupt or whatnot, but, you know, my experience on, you know, trying to get techs is, you know, it's tough, you know, so don't give up because a few don't work out, because that's going to happen. You're going to have to go through and try, and they might work for 6 months and they might start slacking. But you got to realize it's your business. You know, you don't want that technician to slack. So don't be scared to start over again. Also, you know, you're going to eventually hit on a good technician. Eventually you got to pay him good, you know, to keep him around and, you know, and all of that. But I know a lot of, like my dad, for instance, you know, he kind of gave up, you know, on trying to grow his business because he had, you know, issues with technicians, and he just kind of gave up, you know, on the process of, like, he's like, man, every single guy that I sit there and invest and pay money, then, you know, 9 months to a year, you know, they're gone, or sometimes even sooner than that. You know, but that's a struggle that is always going to be, you know, you're always going to have turnover, you know, in employees. But it's always good to find a good employee, at least that's good at training, so you can kind of have two different people, you know, training them to get it going, just so you're not having to focus solely on training. You kind of hand them off to another technician that might have a little bit of other, you know, point of views, you know, on certain stuff, to get them fully, trained up. It's kind of what I've done, and I've had good technicians, and they spread their wings and open up their own business, and some have done good, some have failed and gone back, tried to get a job back with me and stuff like that. Just the circle of what's going to happen, with our industry and a lot of industries.
Travis, do you have any tips as far as specific thing? Because here's my thing, I don't want to waste time. There's got to be red flags that I'm missing. You know what I'm saying? So what are your red flags when you're training a guy to say, all right, this guy might not be the best candidate? Or what are your red flags to say, oh, this guy is a great candidate? Like what are some of the things you look for?
A really good flag that it's gonna be a good technician is personality. When he's running with you and he is actually talking to customers and he's not shy, which I know when you go after younger technicians and stuff like that, it might take a little bit to figure that out, but some people are just more bubbly, with customers. So that's like one of the number one thing that I look into technicians is if they're good with customers, if they're good at talking to customers, because sometimes you can talk your way out of inexperience, like customers won't gauge it, as easily, the shy kid that kind of goes in, doesn't want to really talk, that kind of sometimes can throw red flags, to customers, on, oh, I don't think he knows what he's doing. He's quiet. He doesn't like to talk. That's one thing that I try to filter out on techs. Another thing is retention. If we go and we do a couple Samsung idler pulleys, I expect him to be pretty close where, I'll do it one time, maybe twice, but that third time I really want him to be fully hands-on and try to get through that process without, asking for help, or figuring things out. Like I like if they are new and they're trying to reassemble something and they're kind of stumped, but then you see them kind of figure it out and you see that little light bulb kick on. That's one thing that I've had a few really good technicians do. And even from, day one or day two, they kind of catch on and they can kind of figure that portion of it out. And those have always been really my good technicians that have caught on really quickly, is they were able to hit a problem and then figure it out on themselves, without having to ask too much help.
Travis, you said something that I want to highlight this, and not so much in new tech. So you were talking about kind of a good quality to try to keep your eye out in with the new tech is their interpersonal skills, their ability to talk with the customers. And you had given the example of how somebody that might be a little shyer might not talk as much. That ultimately gives the customer more space to possibly bring their mindset and their perspective in the wrong direction. This is something that all experienced technicians really need to be aware of. You can be the greatest technician. I'm going to give an example. This is a real world example. You can be a really good technician. You can walk in to this was a refrigerator. This is a technician that a company I work with. So this is a real world example. Really good technician walks into a no cool fridge situation, sees that the compressor is bad, sees that the wiring scenario. I'm not a technician, so pardon me on the sort of fumbled description, but something with the wiring it was DIY. Somebody went in and tried messing with the wiring. So as a result, he's like, look, I'm not going to touch this. I can't in good faith. Somebody messed with the wiring. I'm sorry, but here's the information. My recommendation is to get a new fridge, blah, blah. But the point is it was very quick. He was able to identify the problem very fast. And he said, hey, this is what I recommend you do. And that lack of, we'll call it process and the communication and showing that whole diagnostic step process left us dealing with a very upset customer because they were given the space to go into the, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. You know, he's a hack. He's, you know, he's trying to pull a fast one on us because he doesn't know how to do this repair type of thing. So, you know, just as important as you had pointed it out, Travis, I guess the point that I'm trying to make is it's really important to communicate with the customers. Don't expect them to know what you know, particularly if you're walking into a unit where you know what's wrong right away. If anything, that can look really bad. If you walk in and you go, I know what's wrong, you got to do this. Sometimes it makes sense from a reputation and sort of perception from the outside looking in standpoint to not put on a show in a false way, but you know, maybe show a little bit more of that step-by-step diagnostic process so that the customer can feel a little bit more comfortable and confident in the fact that you really do know what you're doing. It's hard to communicate that, hey, you've spent many years, and I'm saying you, I'm not talking about you, Travis, but in general, people, you know, have spent so many years, you know, building this skill set and this knowledge. Try to find ways to communicate that, even if it's in nonverbal sorts of ways of communicating that to the customers, because that can be the difference between a great review of, I'm going to call out another example, you know, EJ. I don't remember exactly what this was, but this was a scenario where EJ collected a service call and he didn't do the repair because he recommended that they take a different route. But because of that process and that communication between himself and the customer, it ended up with a great review. While this first example I was showing, there wasn't that kind of communication, if you will. And it was a scenario where we were pretty much walking them off the ledge. We're dealing with somebody threatening to contact the Better Business Bureau and, you know, leave 1-star reviews on different platforms. And, you know, I mean, it can very easily go in either direction. And it has nothing to do with the efficacy of the technician. It has everything to do with the communication, whether it's verbal or nonverbal communication.
And that's one thing too, you know, to let your technicians know, a lot of that customers just want options, you know, they sometimes feel ripped off, you know, you going in and just immediately saying, hey, your fridge isn't worth repairing, just go buy a brand new one. You know, give them the diagnostic and say, look, you know, your unit's 25 years old, the compressor has failed, you know, you're looking at anywhere from $800 to $1,000. If you're okay with that, I can give you an exact cost. And it at least gives them an option. You know, if you just go in and I try to train my technicians on that, because I've had that issue before where they go in and they, even if it's a warranty, you know, item, my customers have gotten mad when they just run in and say, oh, well, your fridge isn't worth fixing. Well, what's wrong with it? It's just not worth fixing. It's like you got to give them the proper diagnosis, you know. So that's just one thing to kind of push when you have technicians out there, is to give the customer options. You know, even if we know 100%, hey, it's not worth it, give them a dollar amount, you know, always give them that proposal just so they feel like they had the option and they were the ones that turned down the repair and they weren't given no option, just said, hey, go buy a new refrigerator, spend $2,500, you know, and get a little bit more value out of your service, you know, on that standpoint.
I guess one thing and this is, I will admit, this is a rarity, and I do exactly what you're saying. But like, there's certain jobs where I just tell the customer, like, look, can it be fixed? Yes. But should you fix it? No. And I'll give you an example. I went out on an older Frigidaire stack unit, and we were going to do the transmission in it. And in the process of doing it, the transmission was so seized into the tub we ended up needing a tub. We were 3/4 of the way through the repair. Like we were we were probably halfway through the repair. We had everything out, had the tub pulled, taken the transmission off, and the transmission would not come out. And it was one of those things, you're knee deep, you're balls deep into this repair, and now you're about to tell the customer it's going to be several hundred more dollars. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know, I've had that bite me a few times, but I agree 100% with everything you said. And and kind of to circle back around to what you originally said about the guys being good with the customers, the tech that I have now is amazing with the customers. The customers love them. They send them, 5-star reviews on them all the time. Talking about how great and professional and polite, and a lot of them are like, he was a very knowledgeable tech, explained the entire situation perfectly and made the repair. So we're getting all this good positive feedback for months, and now it seems like in the last month and a half, it's just almost like a different. And I've straight up addressed it. I'm like, dude, is something going on?
So TK, you're
Is
breaking
there
up.
something going on? You bro, talk to me. Like, here, I'll take my.
Yeah, that new internet's not working out so well right now, TK.
So if you can hear TK, try to find his strong suits, because of course when you're new in this industry, there's just so much that's just getting thrown at you, and some technicians can kind of go off on overload. So whenever you have a tech, of course, I know you're busy, we're busy, anything kind of helps. So if you can have him, if his strong suit and he's having less recalls on dryers and washers, then try to go ahead and send him out on more of those type of calls, and try to work with him on like doing content on YouTube, or if you have a call that's close en route to him, say, hey, we're going to meet up at this refrigerator because you're really struggling on refrigerators, and try to get a little bit of one-on-one time where he's not always in your van, not making you money. And it could be a full day where you have a type of call that he is bad with, then yank him out of the field and say, hey, you're going to be with me this one day because we need to go over all of this, and you guys can have that, window time to kind of go over, what you guys just did, and ask him, what are you struggling with? What don't you get? So I can kind of help go over those while we get into the call. I've had to do that to technicians, and just kind of pull them back in my truck, and for a day just to reset on stuff that I know he struggled with. How's his diagnosing skills? I mean, on certain appliances, do you see a strong point in certain stuff and a weak spot in another?
I'll be honest, man, like for the first few months it seemed like he was doing really well, but I'll put it to you this way: he misdiagnosed front bearing on a GE dryer last week. So that's a visual inspection thing,
So something like that kind of makes me, whenever I see my techs do it, because I have done it, I kind of think that that's more on, at least when my techs have done it, because they can see like every single call on their day, and sometimes they kind of get overloaded or they want to speed through their list. Maybe try to have your CSR, just have one call on his list, so he just has one call and he can focus solely on that call, and he can go ahead and take care of it at the time that he can take care of it, and then go ahead and have him call in the CSR and say, hey, is there another call? And then have her automatically put that call on his list, and try to go ahead and, keep him probably at 5 or 6 calls a day, and just have him only see one call on his list. So he's not kind of thinking, hey, I want to get off at a certain time, I need to speed through these calls. And then he ends up doing silly stuff like that, like missing a bearing that's sitting there roaring. That psychologically might be able to help. And you can just at least see if engage him on that end of things, if that possibly kind of helps just that type of personality that he has.
Yeah, I think pulling him back in the truck some would definitely help him a lot. And we've done that. Like we've given him light load days. Like, hey man, you only got 3 calls today, and we'll tell him like, hey, when you're done with your calls, like if you're done at 1 o'clock, call the office, get more calls. But like, you only got 3 calls today. Take your time, you know. And you know,
Still messed up.
we're well, you know, we're just trying to stay positive at this point and trying to, you know, really work on um spending more time training him. We've dedicated Thursday evenings to training now, starting next week. We had some personal things pop up this week with my partner. He had to go out of town suddenly, so we had to cancel training for this week. But starting next week, we're going to be doing weekly training again, which we were doing in the beginning, but we stopped.
How's his go-to, you know, on like trying to figure it out on himself, like trying to access videos, you know, how committed is he? You know, does he seem, you know, in this industry?
He seems pretty committed. I mean, he definitely does his research and, you know, goes to the call. He seems to go to the call as prepared as I would. You know, he has access to tech sheets and things like that. So, you know, he'll message me if he can't find it, and I'll try to find it for him or whatever.
Yeah, I would say, you know, keep up what you're doing. You know, I mean, he seems like it's something that a technician that I would want to invest in. You know, if he's invested in it, then those are the techs that are going to eventually get it. You know, and sometimes what I've had with, you know, newer techs, they'll do great for a few weeks and then they'll have a god awful week for some reason. You get like so frustrated, but you have to hit the reset on them. You know, and kind of just talk to them and say, look, you know, you had a bad week. Let's, you know, move on past it. You know, with experience, you know, we kind of get a bad call or a call that ate our lunch. You know, we kind of know how to prioritize it and just put it aside. You know, some of these newer technicians, they don't know how, and it kind of snowballs and it turns into one bad call turns into a bad day, which then turns into a bad week. And it's kind of sometimes kind of hard, you know, to kind of stop that, you know, until like the weekend, or you can even give them a couple days off and say, hey, look, your head's not in the game, you know, just take today off. You know, maybe they're mentally not there. And I've given technicians a day off in the middle of the week, you know, and said, you know, hey, you know, let's just regroup. And sometimes they just need that mental break, you know, because they're mentally fried and they're not going to do a good job whenever they're at that point. Normally they can reset and they can start back and start doing a little bit better of a job.
I'd like to touch base with what Travis said with that GE front bearing misdiagnosis. I think he hit it right on the head. I think it's just he's rushed. I mean, I do it too, you know, maybe not on a front bearing on a GE because we eat, breathe, and sleep those, but, you know, on something that's simple that I should figure out, you know, if I'm running 12 calls a day, you know, and you're rushed, you're not thinking clearly, you know? So I think that's correct. And what you're also saying, you know, I got 2 techs that I recently hired this year, and, you know, they're motivated, and I kind of motivated them by money. It might not be the smartest thing to do, but I don't pay hourly, I pay 50%. So, you know, you have to be completing jobs to make money. And so I trained them, you know, 4 to 6 weeks riding with me, and then they were on the road, own truck, you know, driving around. One started in January, one started in May. They're both on their own now, and they're bringing anywhere between $4,000 and $6,000 a week, you know, bringing into the company each tech. So they're doing all right. But that being said, they're still new, and like Travis said, you know, they make mistakes. They have jobs that they might not know or figure out. And I just go on those jobs, you know, and do the job with them and let them have the job, you know, trying to train them on sealed system. If they go out and diagnose a sealed system problem, I'll go out with all my equipment and all my tools, and I will train them on the job, and then still let them have the job, you know, just kind of kick it to them. But, you know, that being said, I tell them, you know, I want you to start buying torches and buy, you know, I just can't be riding around with you all the time doing your jobs. you're getting paid to go to school. But I mean, they're doing well.
And you train them from scratch?
From scratch, yeah. Mike,
that's awesome,
comes
man.
on
Congratulations.
Yeah, Mike was a commercial mover. He ran a moving, he was like a top guy in a moving company. And then Dustin worked on police cars and ambulances. He wired them up, and so he had wiring backgrounds. They both kind of have race cars. They work on their own cars and stuff, but nothing in the appliance. They just rode with me, and basically a lot of it's just learning how to take this stuff apart, having access to, service matters, appliantology, all these different, MSA. You got to give them the tools to, and of course they got my phone number. I mean, there's days, it's noon and I ain't heard from them, and I feel like I'm left out. So I start calling them. Hey buddy, what are you doing? How's your day going? And then there's days that they seem like they call me every call. They call me, hey, I'm on a machine. It's doing this. It's doing, check this, check that, do this. And they check it and they call me back, hey, it might not be the best way to do it. I hear you guys talking about training for 8 months or 6 months, but that's the way I was trained. I came from a heating cooling background, got hired onto an appliance company, and they said, all right, man, good luck. Here's some calls. And I went, and then just, the first year was rough, but it gets easy. And next thing you know, you've been at it for 16 years and you're like, shit, where'd the time go?
How do you deal with recalls with your guys, David?
Well, their recall is their recall, but also that's my customer. So, I have a CSR now, and if it's just a recall and it doesn't sound something major, she'll just give it to them and I might not even hear. But if there's like a second recall, or maybe a concern from a customer, or maybe somebody wants to talk to a senior tech, I usually am involved. And if it's something that I think that they might not be able to handle, and then I'll just show up. I just call them up and say, hey, we all have recalls. And I'll just schedule it in my day to where I can just show up, pop in, maybe keep the customer occupied, just I'm chatting with the customer. Hey, just keeping them secure that we're, that, and then having my tech, really look at it while I'm giving them a few pointers, and then we figure it out together. And then I say, well, do you understand what just happened? And, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's good. And do you, so like, as far as the money you lose going out on recalls, does that come out of their 50%, or do you eat that?
I pretty much eat everything, I'm still running, and I'm still making what I made, so, I never really, obviously it's a business and we're all trying to make money, but, Travis said this earlier too, you're kind of, it's just, I write it off as a expense, really, I want my techs to look at me as a good guy to work for. I'm not going to nickel and dime them over every, if it's like a recall and we have to send a refund out, if they got paid on a job and I'm maybe refunding something or doing something like that, then then they're going to, but if it's just a recall, they got to go out for free because they're percentage paid. And if there's no money to be collected because it's a recall, if I go out and help them, I'm not charging them for my time. If it's a part thing, depending on what part it is, I might just eat it.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing thus far as well.
Yeah, there's that.
It's getting expensive.
Yeah, it's motivation for
see,
them to do the job properly, and it's supposed to be just to slow them down because they know that they won't get paid. One of the things that I'd bring up, is compensation on the techs. You know, the 50%, that's great for a technician that's a good technician, but always kind of think, you know, just room for them to grow, you know, have them down to maybe 35%, you know, just so they can kind of get a pay raise so they can see that they're doing a better job. Maybe try to, you know, tier it out on tiers of technicians and stuff so they can see, you know, hey, I just got promoted to tier 4, I was 5, you know, and that comes with the 40%, you know, pay. You can also try to throw out incentive bonuses on recall percentage, you know, so if you meet, you know, a monthly goal where your recall, you know, percentage is under 10%, you get a bonus. Just to try to help them even slow down even a little bit more, you know, or like my guys, at least whenever they're new, I require them on every single diagnostic that they go out on, that they go over the symptom of it, how they came to the conclusion of the part. And sometimes and plenty of times actually, I've caught them where they went into the wrong direction, you know, and that's kind of helped, you know, lower a little bit of recall. I know it's a lot. You're busy, you're in customers' houses also. You know, whenever I know I have a new technician, I kind of back my call volume down a little bit, just so I know to kind of be able to be there to kind of help that technician out, to kind of be tech support. Is the greatest thing, because, you know, we all have crazy experience. You know, we know majority of the times we can, you know, hey, it's a refrigerator, you know, not cooling. Well, you need to go into this direction, you know, and it kind of speeds up their diagnostic where they're not there forever. And it could just be a quick little text message, you know, hey, I'm on an LG refrigerator not cooling, you know, what can I check? And then you'll kind of see progression on them learning, because they know, hey, you know, he's told me on LG no cools to, you know, if it's not cool in the freezer or the fridge, check freezer temperature, and then check the compressor amps, you know, and then they just start to give, hey, I'm on an LG refrigerator not cooling, the freezer's at 20 degrees, you know, I'm getting a 0.5 compressor amp, and then you kind of know that they're starting to catch on the diagnostic, and they're going in the right direction. And then you also know it's getting diagnosed properly whenever they leave the job, and that can kind of slow down on recalls.
I'll second Travis on the tier thing. So if I could go back in time, I would establish those tiered levels to give the technicians encouragement to earn their way up that ladder a little bit. And our theory was pay like I forget what your first name is, Dave. Who is it? It's called iPad. Who's
Yeah,
iPad?
David.
Yeah, I'm Dave.
All right, Dave. So 50%. You're going, hey, I'm going to give you the biggest piece of the pie I can afford to give you. Money is the motivator, rocket, you know. But I like what Travis is doing. I think that's the way to go. Don't give them the carrot too soon, because again, what else Travis was talking about was developing good, consistent habits. And so those guys getting off track on their diagnosis and things. So earn their way, so that they can really make the most money down the road after they've shown they've developed good habits and low recall rates. So yeah, good stuff, Travis.
Yeah, and that's kind of
I
that's. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say I agree with that. I agree with the tier rate, but you know, we're not all 18-year-old kids living in our basement. You know, both of my techs have a nicer house than me. You know, wives, kids. You know, I mean, I can't say, hey, I know you have no idea what you're doing. I'm going to pay you 35%. You're probably not going to fix much. I really hope you can live on this, you know, and they probably could, but in doing the 50%, you know, it's like, hey, I know you were making $800 a week bringing home from your last job. Now you're bringing home $3,000 a week. This is why I expect a lot out of you. And this is why I expect you, you know, to be, a good addition to our team. And I think,
okay. But once they've been with you for a while, and this is my experience, and maybe yours is different, they expect the money. And so I have guys that when they've done 7 or 8, they're kind of calculating their day, and they're going, I'm good. And they're making 80 85,000 a year. They could make 90 or 95, but they're pretty content with 80 and want to get home as soon as possible. So I know I have the carrot too close, and they probably need to. They need to. I need them to do 8 or 9 calls a day, or hire more technicians. But they don't want to do it. They don't want to do the more calls because they can make the money with less calls. So I feel like I'm overpaying them.
No, that's part of the benefit of the job, you know, and I'm the same way. Like I said, both my guys race, you know, and on Fridays, they're, you know, they the last couple Fridays when the racetrack opens, they only want 4, 5, 6 calls a day. Part of me says, man, I really wish they were doing 8, 9 calls a day like every other day. And then part of me says, well, this is the reason they're subcontractors, you know, you want the freedom, you want the money, you know, you want it all. You know, and I can't say that I'm any different. I mean, shit, I'm going to Florida for a week and a half next week. You know, we like to take off and we like to, you know, but that being said, I mean, I'm making 100% on my calls. And if you got the drive, you just got the drive. I mean, I'll work 6:45 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. You know, I mean, if the jobs are rolling in, I'm doing them. And that's just the person. You know, you're always going to have, even at 35, 45, 50%, you're always going to have that guy. You know, one of my guys, he works every Saturday. You know, he might only want 6 on Friday because it's race night, but every Saturday he wants to work. I mean, holidays, Memorial Day, I mean, and then I got another guy that he wants off every weekend for his family. Weekends, he don't work weekends, period, family time. You know, so that's just the person. You know, either they're going to be a worker or they're not. And if you're only going to do 6, 7 calls a day, that's fine. Like you said, we'll just hire another tech. As long as that's what you tell me and that's what I can count on, then we're good. But they're knocking out about 8 to 9 calls a day is what we try to give them. Sometimes if we see them moving through them pretty quick, we can throw a 10th one on them.
So I want to jump in here really quick, and then I'm going to end the recording, and we can stick around for as long as we want. First of all, what a value-packed hour. This was like a master class for anybody that is looking to make that jump from single tech owner-operator to hiring their first. All the way to those that you know, that have already hired techs and you know, can benefit from hearing how some others approach things, and then just 2 kind of I guess reflections or takeaways from some of the more recent parts of the conversation is, you know, there are obviously similarities amongst all businesses. We can get down to the fact that, like, look, you all repair appliances in people's homes for the most part, but there's more similarities than just that. That was an oversimplification, but there's differences to every business. There's differences to every business sort of structure, how they operate, how they hire, how they incentivize, and I think there's something to be learned from the other sides of the fence. And then it's also really important to keep in mind, as you guys know, and as Dave was just saying, I mean, it's really important to understand what is the personality type, not only of yourself, but of, you know, your staff, so that you can make sure that you're bringing in the right type of personality type for said position. Something that's going to work well with your management style or your business structure and style. And then also get an understanding of, you know, as David just pointed out, how you can sort of adapt or meet that personality type. And with that, I'm going to shut down the recording. I'm not going to close the room. This recording will be up within the next couple of days on both Facebook and YouTube. This is the Appliance Repair Roundtable every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific.